all these prohibitions. Because then what about the list that Mr. Oh, well, we didn't prohibit that, so how do we treat that as an enforcement issue? And there may have been an issue at one time. In the last 12 years since I've been back in Santa Barbara, I don't see a proliferation of balloons, and it's a runaway balloon problem. And I mean, what do you think, Ariel?
Looking at this after the fact, I think it's odd to have balloon regulations in the sign ordinance. The sign ordinance with respect to balloons doesn't control content.
Right.
So what the issue was not people putting up a balloon with a,
something on it.
unnatural sex act happening or something like that.
Haven't seen one of those.
Well,
That's a way to close my
Plan
eyes.
ahead.
there's a restaurant in
Good
town
line,
that flew a balloon on about a 50-foot tether. The balloon was probably 6 feet diameter, and it said, what did it say?
It's being recorded here, so.
Fiesta Sundays or something like that. I mean, it was Casablanca.
I think
State
you have to
materials.
look at it the
So
way,
it, it's got
if
lettering
you
on
put
it.
an exemption, it closes the window what you can do, and then it tells everybody you can't do it. So it does work in a dissentive manner.
And then if it does become an issue, then you can prosecute or,
Enforce.
regulate, enforce.
So what are we trying to eliminate? The big advertising type balloons that you see at,
We're eliminating.
The guys with the arms that go like this. and they
Well, that's
do-
not a balloon.
That's not a balloon?
That has a
It's
specific,
an inflatable.
that's got a specific
Yeah,
name.
but
What's
it's,
the definition?
Bob's right,
What are we
it has
trying to-
actually different-
The extension of high flying balloons
yes.
is one way we regulate this, by saying you can keep them down at a certain height. And the concession the council gave was they picked 12. I think we were recommending a few, but they chose 12, so
And are we
that's where
going
we're
to
at.
enforce that? I mean, I always come back to,
We will,
have a regulation, are we
we will
actually
enforce
going
it.
to?
if
You know,
every
if
source-
it's obnoxious and egregious, I will enforce it.
Are we really talking about balloons, or are we talking about inflatable signs?
Yeah,
We're talking
because the
about balloons.
definition of balloon is not larger than 18 inches, so this sign ordinance doesn't apply to big inflatables. So are big inflatables regulated
Yes.
elsewhere?
Yeah.
than municipal code?
They're not allowed, period.
Okay.
We're
Where
not
does it
just
say
balloons.
that?
We've got another section that
Okay,
says
but it's not, this is not that.
No, this is
No.
balloons.
This is balloons.
simply-
Greg, what's your
Balloons.
But it's
recommendation?
elsewhere in
Is
the
it just
municipal
prohibited?
code, or it's
It's
in
in-
22.7?
It's in here. You can't
Second
have
that
inflatables.
motion.
So is there a definition for it?
There's a definition of inflatables, and then there's prohibited signs, and it's,
Inflatable signs, so
yeah,
lighter than
so
air,
it's covered.
tethered or otherwise.
We're just talking about
attached.
regular balloons.
Yeah.
You get it Ralph's, those kinds of things.
Well, I would say if balloons are a distinct subset of inflatable signs, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem with just taking balloons out of there as long as we've got inflatables covered.
Well, balloons, like a red balloon, blue balloon,
Uh-huh.
either say none at all, or don't regulate it, and just say balloons may not be used as signs.
Could we get away with that, Ariel?
Yeah, you prohibit inflatable signs now. You could eliminate the permission granted for balloons and just prohibit all inflatables.
Such a can of worms here. Is there any way not to get into this at all?
What my concern is that we seem to be nitpicking into every little thing in the sign ordinance as if we're rewriting the whole thing. And, I spent hours again today getting back up to speed, because it's been how many months since we last met, and so that's a problem if there's a long lag. But I wrote down kind of a list of objectives that I felt were kind of important, that
Is balloon regulation one of them?
that was not one of them. Well, I'll read it to you. It was protect city from exposure to lawsuit due to non-compliant regulation of content-based sign or non-commercial speech. Determine which parts of the sign ordinance relate to non-commercial versus commercial sign types. And recognizing that Reed versus Gilbert is considered not to affect commercial speech, minimize or avoid changes to parts of sign ordinance that apply to commercial signs. So that leads to other questions, one of which is a temporary construction sign a commercial sign, or is that non-commercial speech? it doesn't, I found a definition, that, commercial speech, with that, the prevailing thrust of which is to propose a commercial transaction. Well, that's pretty specific, and a construction sign isn't proposing a transaction, but it does have to do with a business activity, a commercial activity. And then it just all seems like this big Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole that, it was Clarence Thomas who basically said if you have to look at the sign to determine what type of sign it is, then that's a content-based decision. So if you have to look to see if it's a commercial sign versus a non-commercial sign, are you in trouble for even doing that? So, it just,
That's the next case.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court in Reed set a trap. Commercial regulation is easier now, it's a lower standard to regulate
Intermediate
commercial
scrutiny.
signs, but I think the court set a trap for the next case, which will be to say that commercial speech is fully protected, just like non-commercial speech.
Yeah.
And if you look at the campaign finance cases, that's where they're wanting to go. They're equating commercial transaction with speech, which is understandable.
Yeah, so I would rather focus on the things that have more to do with non-commercial speech and avoid as much as possible getting into nitpicking things about balloons and this and that. It will be here forever.
So translating that, you would say, leave the existing prohibition on inflatables and the existing permission for a dozen balloons.
Unless there's some overriding need to make some kind of change to the ordinance, I would say, we could spend forever doing that.
Okay, and I guess the current ordinance, Jaime, would allow a perpetual balloon display.
As long
And,
as the helium stays,
Yeah, if the rubber balloons are gonna last a few days,
it'll
and
stay
if they're
dripping and
the
the
Mylar ones, they're
And that's what was
longer, but
happening,
those are gross.
they replace them back up
Yeah.
after the helium.
But I can't say I've noticed a lot of that going on.
So along the
Depends on the
ridge line
neighborhood
of
you live
those,
in or drive, it depends on the neighborhood you live
Oh,
in
yeah,
or
I
drive
suppose.
through.
Yeah.
And I live near car dealerships,
Oh, yeah, car dealerships do that.
a little sensitive about it.
Yeah.
I don't think we
I
should
guess
have
you
balloons
are.
at all.
So shall we leave well enough alone even though it's not perfect? That's a question to the table.
Yeah. Or it's another committee for another day to get into, making revisions to the sign ordinance, but I kinda think we should limit our activities to making it compliant with the Supreme Court case,
I agree with that.
In other words, leave it alone.
which
I
the.
agree with,
for
I
now,
agree with
yeah.
that. We should focus.
Yeah.
So, am I hearing, leave this one alone and move on?
I'm okay with it because it is a quantity of 12. And if they're up for, if there's more than 12 and they're up for 2 or 3 days, then,
Deborah?
I'll report them.
I'm okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right, let's leave that and move on.
I think we have some bigger issues and this from the time on.
Okay, great. Non-commercial residential, let's see. So this is the basic allowance issue now.
This would be like political signs, right?
Well, what the ordinance is trying to say is that you can post any kind of non-commercial sign up to 6 square feet, and that's your base allowance.
This is the one that you could say any nasty thing you want and put it on your front lawn.
Right, yes.
No
and-
on 6.
And
No on 6, or yes on 5.
No, that's political. This would
Say
be-
that.
my advice is
Yeah, it's a
to
public.
create a base sign allowance for every land use category and then do things as an additive. So the question here is really, is 6 square feet a reasonable number for a single-family residential zone, recognizing now that the content may indeed,
Abusive.
well, no, it could be commercial, unless we ultimately decide we wanna try and follow the law that allows stricter regulation for commercial speech. That's another quagmire, we don't wanna get into it tonight, so I think this one is easy, is 6 square feet the right size for a?
It's basically the size of a campaign sign, right?
It's not very big.
2 by 3.
So campaign signs are not addressed elsewhere in this blue.
That would be content.
They are addressed in B6, under non-commercial residential, in that it includes that election signs shall not be displayed for more than 90 days prior to the election, or for more than 10 days after. So the way I'm proposing dealing with that is we add a second sign permission of some size 90 days before and 10 days after elections. So allow a temporary second sign during the periods where they tend to be political signs. And yes, there's a potential it would be abused, but it's only 100 days worth of
Okay.
abuse.
Isn't that a
So
problem?
residential, like, I mean, the typical, election sign is 18 by 2, so it's 3 square feet.
Well, 2 by 3, I think, aren't they?
2 by 3.
2 by 3?
Yeah, I think they are.
That's big.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
6 square.
I usually get the smaller ones, but,
Yeah.
so you could have 2 of those, that'd be 6
You
feet,
can now ask for bigger ones, Howard.
bigger ones.
Mhm.
So you're saying that election signs, if you wanted, if I wanted to support 3 measures and 2 candidates, I could go out and get signs and put them in my yard.
One more sign, right?
Yeah, no, as I read the regulations, and Jaime can correct me, you get one sign of 6 square feet. If it is an election
You're right,
sign,
they're smaller.
it can only be displayed for 100 days. So it creates a broad permission for any non-commercial speech at your home, but then restricts it if it's political speech.
Time with.
So
I
constitutionally, it's.
think the last time there was a proposal or discussion about having multiple candidate signs as long as they were kept below 42 inches. That there was an inference that during the political season, one could have multiple signs, and would that be a problem?
No, it's legal.
So as many-
It's not a legal issue.
As many additional signs as you want within that 100
The height.
days.
Absolutely, and you
Yeah,
can
90
And
days.
control.
actually, I think
Exactly.
6 is, I think you're right, Howard, they're actually less than 2 by 3, they're like 24 by.
You mean the smallest size?
Well, the typical yard sign.
With those little poles sticking.
Yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
there are some really small
So,
ones.
so the question would be, during the political season, you get the 6 square feet, right? Then what could you go up to after that?
Right, and how many?
And how many? That's your question.
Say it again now? Yeah.
You get the 6 square feet always,
Yeah.
and then during the political season, that limit window, how many more signs would you allow them to have, either by quantity or square footage?
Well, if you do cumulative square footage, you can end up with a huge sign in a
Okay,
residential
so it'd
neighborhood.
probably be best quantity of,
Quantity.
Well, how about if we just limited it to that number forever, just to come political time, they switch to what kind of sign they gotta put up?
Just one sign?
that's gonna-
Or
One
3,
more sign?
if you have 3 politicians you wanna support,
right?
state, president and local, you'd
Well,
wanna
look
have,
at- I think that's highly constraining people's rights. I mean, look at this year in Santa Barbara. We have 3 new districts and the mayoral race. And if we also had a ballot measure, if we had something else going on, Measure B or something like that came back. I mean, there could be 5, issues at stake. I think it's people's rights to express what they support.
how far? How many
Well, I'm
signs?
just, where if we limit the size and we're saying 90 days before, 10 days after, and quite frankly, for the purposes of elections, nobody typically wants to keep the sign up. There's that sweet spot, we talked about this. You're not gonna put it out too many days in advance, and you're not gonna keep it up long after election. Some people just forget and they just get lazy, but for the most part, Santa Barbarans, I think, I don't know.
Well, let's just
What
throw
do you-
a number out
Is
What do
there.
you think?
is
Do you
it-
have an opinion, Greg, about?
They usually come down the next day.
I mean,
Is it possible to have some kind of a matrix, it's mathematically generated thing where you could have, 100 signs of like 10 inches each, or, come down, or maybe one sign 10 by 10, and, graduate in between, so that overall there's a limited amount of area.
You're gonna
on the-
work on that algorithm, aren't
A
you?
little algorithm, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, maybe it's not so
It's much
exaggerated.
easier to regulate if you just put a number. You can get up
Yeah.
to 10, 15, whatever that magic number is, it'll keep it below a certain height. Then it's,
I just think it's people's right to express what
but
they
how
want to
many,
support.
how many?
Well, that's where the algorithm comes in.
Pick a number, Mike, again, I just used Santa Barbara as an example this year.
Yeah,
We
you-
have four seats in play, including the mayoral seat, and then if we had a ballot measure, so if you just wanna use this as a maximum, 5, I don't know. Certainly during even year elections, we could have many more than that, many more ballot measures, propositions.
So would you have to put a number on that 90-day or 100-day period? Number of signs, or just
Pick
put
a
it?
number of signs, I
No.
don't know.
No, you don't have to, it's a policy call.
So what we have currently, at least what we've settled on last time, I think, was one 6 square foot sign all the time for 100 days out of the year. You could have as many more 6-foot signs as you wanted.
You
Correct.
mean unlimited?
I think
Is that
that's
what
what
you said,
we,
Bob?
I
Is
don't
it
think we
unlimited?
set a limit, it set a number on the additional signs.
What do you think?
Maybe we
Frank?
did.
Do we need to?
I would say no.
I would say no.
So how would you state it?
You get one 6 square foot sign anytime you want. If you want additional signs during, political season, you may have as many more signs of that size
Two or three.
as you can squeeze onto your property.
You mean
Or 6 square feet.
one 6-foot sign up all year round?
That's, yeah,
Is that what we're talking about?
That's the base allowance now. You get one,
Could we have 0
what?
signs?
One
I
sign
wouldn't
up all
advise
year?
that.
Oh.
Okay.
Is that that's too restrictive?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
let
it's a complete censorship, and, it's conceivably doable, because you could imagine someplace like EPV where that kind of standalone signage is just not appropriate, but it's gonna raise eyebrows
I
and
see.
be tough to defend. And I also think of, say, an Irvine kind of pre-planned community that wants to be uniform, and Santa Barbara is eclectic, and it's not, I don't think, the question to analyze for you is, would the community values want that, kind of sanitary?
Oh, that's a good
Feeling.
point.
That's your policy call.
and if we set a number on additional signs during the political season, inevitably, somebody's gonna say, I have to have 6, you told me I could only have 5.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Maybe we don't
the
limit
the
it by
candidate
number.
who doesn't get to put his sign
Yeah.
up because he is the 6th of
Maybe
the-
we don't limit it by number, just size, and then 90 days before, 10 days after.
Yeah, and then they come
you
down.
get one sign all year round. How does that sound, Ariel, from a legal defensive?
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. It's purely a policy choice. I think allowing unlimited signs 100 days of the year will be misused.
No, I thought you said wasn't the proposal one sign throughout the year, and then 90?
We're talking
and then
about
during-
unlimited for 100 days out of the year, yeah.
Yeah, 90 before, 10 after.
It's
I
a
mean, specifically, we say
long
90
time.
before,
Ariel.
10 after.
He just said that there's a chance that people will abuse that, though.
In the interest of keeping the volume down politically, if we said, okay, only during political season could there be the signage that we're talking about here, you're just worried that the ACLU would say that's suppression of free speech,
What?
to have no signs at all on residential properties except during a political season.
Yes, if you want me to analyze that, I will, but I think it's won't be time well spent.
So,
Because
aren't there different elections and different, types of, you could have a political season all year. I mean, there would be school districts, and there'd be something else going
Los
on,
Angeles is a case in point,
maybe,
just
yeah.
about, yeah.
If the goal is to be very permissive around elections, do pick a number, but make it a high number. So don't make it unlimited, make it 10, make it 15, whatever. you
Or
know.
total square footage, and then you could have a
I
lot
don't-
more of smaller
The campaigns
size.
are gonna
Well,
be
there's your
one
algorithm.
size sign.
Yeah.
They're gonna just.
And that's gonna be
keep it
difficult
see,
to
I see
enforce
your
too.
point, yeah.
You're gonna have to go out and measure everything.
Yeah.
10 signs.
I'm going to volunteer to develop an algorithm curve so that you can have any number of signs, any quantity, as long as they're under the curve within the area. It'll work.
I hope you'll explain all of that.
Yeah, I
and
know.
Bring back the algorithm.
It's called
please.
area under the curve.
It's actually,
He's
it's
gonna-
not, it's not
Area
that hard.
under the
It's
curve.
not that hard.
Yeah.
It's a maximum allowable, 100 square feet, with a minimum and a cap.
Right.
So you.
Why is, that's, I
So you
mean,
can take 100 square feet, and if we're allowing, 5 square feet per sign, you're gonna get 20 signs. But if you want 40 signs, you make them 2.5 square feet apiece. So it's
Right.
it's not that complicated to express it that
you
way.
do a graph, 1 to 10 is feet along the horizontal, 1 to 10 feet vertical. Draw a curve, any curve, and just say anything below the
Well, I
curve.
think we're trying to put this in text form,
Well, and
not,
again,
yeah.
the practical reality is the campaigns are gonna print up, 100, 500, 1,000
Right.
signs of exactly the same size, and they're gonna hand them out to people. There's not
That-
gonna be
that's the
any
reality.
customizable
Right,
ability
right.
of that. So-
Well, you
Yeah.
pick, then you pick
Similar
points,
kind
pick
of
points
overwork.
of like 2 by 2, 3 by
But
2.
they're not.
I think
It's
you're
not
making it
gonna
more
happen.
complicated than you
They're
did.
not
It's not gonna
concerned
happen.
about our sign ordinance.
So
It's
I
gonna
would,
be the same size
I would
sign.
guess that you two gentlemen know what the size is of the sign that's typical as a campaign.
I think a 2x3 sign is a big sign.
Yeah, it is.
Smaller
It's a big
signs than
sign.
that.
Yeah, I think they're more like 18 by
Yeah.
24.
18 by 34 or something.
So nobody would complain about that. And I think RO's point about just pick a number, nobody's gonna have
On the
a sign
high
for
side.
every proposition on the ballot, and if you did it that way, that's a giant number. It could be
Especially in
60.
Santa Barbara,
Yeah,
we're just,
but
this is not a
most
big
people,
market.
I rarely see more than 4 or 5 signs.
Yeah, very rare.
Even the
6 max?
ads.
6
Yeah.
max?
Probably
6,
kind
a
of-
number.
So
I
if we had
prefer-
6 signs of whatever the dimensions are of the
It's gonna
signs
be
that
very
Greg and I are
rare.
talking about, would that be satisfactory? That'd be easy to police. No, polices is the opposition. So it's sort
Okay,
of
so,
self,
6 additional during 90, in the 90-10 window around,
local
local,
elections
state, national elections, and so we're talking about June, November.
typically.
We don't have anybody in April. We could have special elections, it's conceivable, but that's infrequent. And then Jaime, currently, what are we doing about the height of those residential signs? I didn't find any limitation.
I don't think we enforce it that way. We're assuming that most of the time in residential zones, they're placing it in their front lawn.
Yeah, and when they're not, it's stuck in a hedge,
Or sometimes it's in a window.
on the
could be.
There's a,
6 feet, would do that number
Yeah.
or less?
I'd prefer to see less. I think if the standard is 18 by 24, that's what we ought to use.
no, the maximum height.
We don't have a height
I'm
limit
sorry,
right
but
now.
Yeah, 6 feet. 6
I've
feet are
seen that-
great, yeah.
I've seen that abused in a war memorial.
Not to
in
exceed the
somebody's
height of the
yard.
ground sign?
Yeah, not to,
You
right.
could
We've
say
got a
maximum
6-foot
dimension,
standard for ground signs.
maximum dimensions,
So,
not to exceed.
The size remains 6 square feet.
How about if you put
I'd
it in
prefer
your,
to see it
if
smaller.
you put it in your window, your front window?
well,
Second floor condo.
then the ordinance could say it can go in a ground floor window or in the yard no higher than 6 feet.
That work?
Yeah, I think if you peg a height limit, you don't need to worry about where it's placed if you don't care about them being in windows. So I'd say, 6 feet, 10 feet, whatever it is, pick a number. I think there's a safety consideration. Tall signs can be dangerous, and you know that Joe or Jane homeowner goes to Home Depot and buys some 2x4s and puts up a 15-foot sign, somebody's gonna get hurt.
Well, but by this standard, if somebody put it in their second floor window, they'd be in violation. So I don't know, I'm just wondering, is there a problem with that right now? And, once again, I think we're rewriting the ordinance, and I'm not sure.
There are
if-
permanent signs in people's windows in Santa Barbara expressing their values.
Mm-hmm.
We got a complaint
And
this
that's
week
all,
from somebody.
and that's all year round, and
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
in every community, that's just,
We got an email complaint from somebody who was complaining about those diversity signs, those signs that are
Yeah.
all over the place.
Mhm.
I yet don't know what those are, but
what What do they look like, Rick? What are you
I
referring
don't know if I could pull it up with my phone.
They're in Persian or Arabic or something?
So it sounds like you don't care about in the windows, just say 6 foot maximum height
Yeah, I think that's.
on ground.
Yeah.
And if people wanna
If
violate
they're
that.
freestanding.
If
then
it's a
6
yard
feet would
sign,
be-
then 6 feet high. If
Yeah.
it's in the window, then I suppose anywhere.
I think you could also, if you say the height has a maximum, you could say that maximum dimension in any direction is 3 feet. So if they wanna use up 3 feet, then they get 2 feet in the other direction. If they wanna use it as 18 by 24, then that's fine, they're within the maximum.
So have you got something you can write there, Ariel, from what people have said?
Yeah, I understand the windows, I understand 6 feet on the ground. You gotta do the what ifs. If somebody sets up an array of signs during election season on the roof, standard pitched roof, top of the sign no higher than the ridge line, no real different, or no different, say there's a dormer window up there. Do you want, I would be cautious about not regulating, height. I think can be dangerous, and I think it, will be abused by people who are wanting to make a strong expression about whatever they wanna make a strong expression about. Because,
So we,
How about
Don't
somebody
allow
has a
window
second
signs?
floor condo and wants to put it in their window? That's above 6 feet,
Right.
but not 6 feet above their floor
well,
level.
what if somebody in the 5th floor of the Granada building wants to put a sign in his window?
I think you can say in any window, but not on the structure, that
Yeah.
would be fine.
Yeah, you could say, or just
In
signs
any
outside
window.
of the building are limited to 6 feet high to the top.
In any window?
So what do we got here? We're spending
We've
too long
got,
on this.
we're okay with the existing 6-foot residential allowance for non-commercial. We're not gonna worry about commercial versus non-commercial yet. We're going to allow, what did you end up with?
6.
6 political signs, 90-10, and no higher than 6 feet if in the yard.
Or you just say outside of the building.
Just keep going here.
So they
Hold-
can't mount it on the outside
Steve,
of the
hold on.
building any higher than 6 feet.
Let Ariel keep
or-
going here. Steve, what were you saying, Ariel?
No higher than 6 feet. I said in the yard because I'm trying to we're gonna have to get to the setback question at some point too, so, I'm trying to plan ahead for that, but for now, no higher than 6 feet, if outside the building, or in or adjacent to any window. Now, I would suggest street facing window so that I don't end up with my neighbor putting a sign.
Yeah,
aimed at me.
objectionably. All right, say that.
Why would we have adjacent to a window? Cause that implies
trying
it's
to
gonna
s-
be not on the wall of the building, outside,
Yeah, outside the building means it can't be attached to the wall of the building.
Okay?
or on the
So
roof, it just,
Yeah,
in,
or on the
in the
roof or
window.
anything like
In
that.
any street facing window,
Excellent.
all right?
All right, let's move on.
Okay. And, you know, your time on that is well spent. You know that political signs are gonna be a big issue. Everybody's gonna wanna know, so it's okay that it took a little time. Okay, non-commercial, non-residential, 24 square feet per lot.
What are we thinking of here?
Same things. 6 feet and
Well,
6
This
max.
is non-residential.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example? What are you talking about here?
An office building.
For lease.
Chick-fil-A.
Or large, very large for lease signs that are up in, right now.
That's
in
not a
some-
non-commercial sign though, is it?
Yeah, right.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was thinking commercial, never
I'm
mind.
assuming for right now that we are not yet gonna get into the
Never mind.
commercial versus non-commercial slicing and dicing.
Okay, but for lease sign, is that part of
So
what we're talking about right now?
assume a
or-
business
That's
has the
temporary real
right
estate.
to post a non-residential sign.
Uh-huh.
And so, let's say that Carl's Jr. or Chick-fil-A want their political views to be known, and they decide to post 24 square foot signs on their buildings. Where do you want them? That's the
Do they
issue.
have to be
Why do they have to be 24 square feet?
Well, that's the existing rule, so that can change.
I say we change it to 6.
So give a very small base sign allowance and
Yeah.
then some special
And
allowances.
then maybe a
for-
larger
I think
number.
that's equitable, I mean, with
I
what
don't know
we just
why a
talked
larger
about.
number.
Why would they
Just
get a
one?
bigger sign?
Yeah, just
Could
because
be
it's a commercial zone, why would we wanna
I
clutter
think
up a commercial zone any more than
the
residential?
rationale is typically that people expect commercial areas to have indicators of commerce. And so there's less visual harm done on State Street than on, Olive.
Well, they're also larger parcels, so they're not as dense necessarily on a
Sometimes
large
they
commercial
are.
property.
State
But
Street
not
has,
necessarily
you know,
on State
25-foot
Street. Yeah,
storefronts.
so it's not necessarily the
Also,
case.
Can we
multi-story,
discourage commercial ventures from making political statements on their buildings?
No, but we can
No,
limit the
no.
size.
Have to
Well, I
allow it?
also heard, the news press, Mr. Casey.
Yeah, Don Kate.
Don-
His big
H.
message was not to have less free speech. That's one of his goals, so
Yeah.
we're gonna try to, I think he'll object to that.
I don't care.
Where's Don tonight?
Well, I'm just saying that
why
that was
I'm-
his view, that was,
But the example you gave, Ariel, just a moment ago, it didn't sound like it was, it sounded like it was sort of a personal value message on a commercial property.
I'm imagining that.
You're imagining
It could be, the way the regulation reads now, it's non-commercial messages in non-residential areas.
Yeah, well, that would be the example you just gave, as opposed to a commercial sign, which we're not talking about right now. So what else would a non-commercial sign be, what else would the purpose be? For a
Go back
non-
to-
Directional, for example,
Oh,
you know, the other,
and we're talking temporary still, temporary sign, not a permanent sign, right? We're talking
No.
temporary.
No.
So,
So this is permanent, like enter here.
Ariel, how about if somebody in Greg's district wanted to put up a sign that supported him? That's covered, that's what we're talking about here, right?
At their business location.
At their business.
Yeah.
Oh, at the,
Shouldn't they be allowed to do that? Yes.
Yes, they should. I don't
Well,
know why they
would
should be
think that it
allowed to
should be
have,
equal to a residential
4 times
property.
the
I don't
square
know
footage,
why
though.
a commercial property should get more.
right, why 4 times the square footage?
Yeah, I would think that equal would be defensible.
that's what I said in the, yeah.
Yeah, can we do that? Just keep it the same as residential?
I think it's a great idea. Makes it.
I
Excellent.
think that would.
I think having a tight base allowance and then specialty
Yeah.
extras is the best way to regulate.
Yeah.
All right.
Are we all in agreement?
Yes.
Okay,
Excellent.
amazing. We did that in
so,
4
so,
minutes.
do we have a specialty,
We
is
did
that
our
the
work
next
before.
category?
We're not gonna get there yet.
Okay,
We're
was your
gonna-
question,
let's
Jaime?
keep plowing through the list.
he doesn't wanna get into the specialty of, like, during an election, do you give them more than what the basics?
No, not yet.
We'll-
Not yet.
Don't make it complicated.
Well, we're hitting the hard ones because the next one's
Well, that's
the
good.
temporary real estate. All right, and now they're allowed, there a couple of categories. A real estate sign is not an open house sign.
This is a for sale sign, right?
Right.
That's what it typically is,
That's what we're talking about here?
For sale or
For
release.
lease, or lease or sale.
for sale, rent, or lease. So, and it's 1 per street frontage, 4 square feet. Per sign, and can be double-sided.
Yeah. That's status quo.
Hmm?
Good, keep it,
Yeah.
go on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody all right with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now, you can't control what's on that sign.
No.
So what you can say is, I think we can say that you get an extra sign while property is being marketed for sale, rental, or lease.
No, why? That's what that function of that sign is.
But if you have a sign that says, if you have a permanent, okay, yeah, temporary,
Why would you need more than one?
Why would you need,
House
yeah,
thing,
why would
is
you
that
need
what
to
you're
add
No,
one?
no, I'm saying that we can no longer categorize that it is a for sale sign or a real estate sign. So the question is whether you give somebody an extra sign during the period where they are marketing for sale, lease, or rental.
Well, what would go up on the original sign?
It's a
But
temporary
they-
sign.
You know,
Who
the
doesn't-
original sign says Jesus saves, and it has for the last 40 years. The new sign says for sale.
But we're categorizing it as a temporary sign?
It's currently categorized as temporary.
Yeah, during the time it's up for sale or lease, so that makes it temporary. It could stay longer.
It's
if
more than
you
30
never, If you
days,
never lease
Yes.
it out.
Right, but I'm just wondering why we would have the opportunity to have another one when the property's for sale.
You don't
Well,
have to
It's
do
a
it that
temporary
way.
sign to begin with.
But the way that looks is you cut out any reference to real estate signs at all in the ordinance.
Okay,
And then the question's gonna be asked, what about real estate signs? And it's gonna be, you can use your 2x3, your 6 square feet for whatever you want.
Right.
You're gonna get the real leasing companies upset. They like the 4x6 right now.
well,
But that's the next thing,
that's
right?
too bad.
We're not talking about-
Not residential, they don't
we're
like
just
4
talking
by
about
6.
residential.
So temporary real
Okay.
estate, residential, 4 square feet. I don't know why we need to have more than one sign. If you've got something else that's a temporary sign, there's a specific time period for that?
Am I understanding that the basis for all this is in order to comport with Reed? Everybody's entitled to a sign that can say anything they want?
No,
No?
I'm not willing to say that you're entitled to signs. What I'm saying is that I could look at that, but I think it would be unproductive to try and justify uniform censorship of any signage in town.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand, cause it seems like, I
I-
thought
you-
from earlier meetings that having even a category of exempt signs was a problem with Reed, because that was a different category than signs that require permits, and these are all different categories.
Right,
So,
and so what we're
I'm
trying,
not sure how
we're trying to translate, you asked, the committee asked last time
Mhm.
that we focus on size and land use. We can't control the content. And we could get into color and lighting and all that, that's for another day. But right now, we're trying to take these land use categories and see what to do with them. And the question you're struggling with is, do you need an additional sign when you're selling your property? Is that reasonable?
Additional to what? That's what
The
I
base
think
sign.
The
everybody.
The
base
base
sign
sign.
allowance will always
Okay,
be
so there is a
6
base
feet.
sign allowance.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
that
that-
free speech one, that you can put whatever you want up there.
So everybody's entitled to that.
And are we characterizing that as temporary?
Why couldn't you just have that base sign and it could be used for whatever you want? If your house is for sale, well, then you'd use it that way. If
I think that, I think, you could do that, okay? I think there will be problems with that, because people are going to put up permanent displays. Not many, but some people will, and if they wanna sell their property, they're not gonna wanna take down the sign. So I think what you're trying to do with the real estate signs is accommodate the realtor who goes and sticks a sign in the front yard. And that's a, you know, it's a short-term thing, everybody's used to them.
when somebody wants to sell their house, I got a feeling they're gonna change the sign.
It's your call.
Well, that's the call I would make. That you get one sign when you want, and then if you're gonna sell your house, you can still use it however you want.
Just change the face.
You change the face, or not. You know, not everybody, it's not compulsory that you have a sign when you're
No.
selling your house.
Right.
In
Right, it's
fact,
probably a bad idea.
in Montecito, you can't have one.
Really?
So
So,
just a ridiculous idea here, but what if you wanna sell your house during the political season?
Put
Yeah.
up 10 or 6 political signs,
Yeah, you
or
get the
6
has
for
nothing to do
sale
with it.
signs.
Yeah.
I
Well, I
like,
think, Frank, if you're
Frank's
representing the real
idea.
estate industry and wearing that hat,
Yeah.
and you're saying that the signs can be traded out, I
Yeah.
think the rest of the group here probably isn't gonna fight you on that, I think.
Okay, so the existing regulation says double-faced 4 square feet, that's 8 square feet. What you're saying is 6 square feet. So you're allowing a,
no,
No,
we'll just
no.
leave it the way it is.
Just leave it the way it is, same
Well, but
size.
no, you're not saying that, because like Oriel said, you're making the person change out their 2x3 sign to have.
yeah, you're
this
saying they
sign.
can only have 1 sign.
Right?
So you're gonna say, if it's for sale, you have to reduce the size? You can't do that.
Well,
No,
then,
well,
yeah,
well,
let them
I
have,
don't- no,
let them
it's
have
just-
2x3 then.
Or shrink the original baseline sign
Right.
to something closer to this. That's the other way you could do it too. Which is probably fine too, the more we think.
Where did we
talk
get
about
to
it.
the baseline that was bigger than this?
The
What?
baseline and the first thing on the blue thing is a 6 square foot.
Six, I
sign,
see,
as
I see.
opposed to the 4.
So that's the conflict here.
Yeah.
It's a conflict if you don't want to change the size parameters of real estate signs.
Well, we could make real estate signs bigger if they want to. I gotta feel
Sure.
they're not gonna want to, but
So
it's just
we're
still one sign.
recommending that we have a 2 by 3 foot real estate sign, a 6 square foot real estate sign,
They would be allowed to do that.
it would be allowed.
If they
I
chose
think,
to.
I think that trying to stick to the content categorization that we've used historically will be more comfortable for people. So if you're able to say to the realtors, when the house is for sale, you get an extra 4 square foot sign and it can be double faced.
How big are the signs in real life? The 4 set of signs?
What, I don't know, 2 by 2 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not big.
So,
Well, they're not square, they're rectangular.
Right.
No.
So they're something by something.
Yeah, I don't know what the size is.
So
I-
what happens to this project Estancia up on Upper State Street there, or Mark across the street? They have all these, I mean, that's a commercial building, there are multiple units,
Condos, yeah.
condos. That's non-residential, and they're gonna have signs. One sign, multiple signs? I can't imagine them being able to accomplish their signing with one sign.
Well, we're not on that thing, right, Howard?
Which one are we
We're
on?
not talking about non-residential.
Oh, I
Now,
thought we were
We're
talking
talking about residential, we're on this 4 square foot thing. We will have that question, and that there's lots
I
of
see,
discussion
I
about
see.
for lease signs on State Street right now, but let's, for the purposes of getting through, because I'm gonna leave at 6:30, I think we should focus on what we're on, which is
So
the
this-
4 square foot thing.
And those
the
condos.
central question Ariel's asking is, do people have to take away their existing baseline sign to put the new fresh sign, or do they get to have 2 signs when they're selling their property? And how big should the new sign, the new for sale sign be?
If you go that route, could they have therefore 2 for sale signs on their property?
They could.
It's fun, at some point you get clutter. I mean, it's a matter of taste. And neighbors could object to that.
Well, we're having 7 during election season.
Yes?
And
Agreed. But those are
hopefully,
those are
with any luck,
temporary.
it doesn't take more than 100 days to sell a property.
Well, sometimes it does, unfortunately.
I think we go with a 6 square foot sign, and that's what you get. And if you put your house up for sale, then you take
Still,
it
that's
down.
what you get.
You change the face on that sign to read for sale.
Okay, the realtors will cry bloody murder.
I don't know if they will or not,
You mean
honestly.
because they're losing their free speech sign to do this?
Yes, and it's a reduction from 8
They
square
get
feet to
8
4.
now,
Mhm.
so it's gonna get smaller.
Because with the double facing thing.
Correct,
Yeah.
exactly.
So if you.
Oh, sorry.
Well, wait a minute, if we just say that that's the size of the sign, even if it's double face, it's still the size of the sign. We don't have to double
Yeah.
that. You just get 2, you got one, whatever it is, 2 by 3, you either use one side or 2.
Well,
But it's
our
still the same
monument
size
signs
sign.
Counted as just on one side.
Right,
Yeah.
that's how
So
we-
it could be
that's how
double
we work with
face
monuments.
free,
Okay,
but-
so we're gonna allow double face signs.
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
base
but that probably
allowance.
doesn't.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
People want that. I mean, you drive by, you want to be able to see what's,
Yeah,
you know,
unless you're on a
whatever
one-way
direction
street,
you're
it
coming
makes
from.
sense.
Both ways.
Yeah.
I think you have to say two signs.
So have you got something workable there, Ariel? Or are you ready to go?
I've heard 2 things. What I think you're wanting to do is ignore the issue altogether and say that if you wanna sell your property, you use your base allowance to do so.
Yes.
All right.
That's the motion on the table.
Hey,
It
are we in
doesn't have to be
agreement?
one sign, right? It can be, you can split that 6 square feet into 2 signs.
No, you
No,
can have
you
6
can't.
square feet on either face of a 2-sided sign, but you can only have one sign.
Okay.
Or you can have something smaller than 6 square feet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
And
Which
we're
they probably
we're
will.
circling back to the base
Is that
side,
property
size
Yeah.
and allowing that to be double faced.
Right.
Wait a minute,
In order to be consistent, okay?
We circled back to the base sign to allow that to be double faced. this is the same size, the same sign, just has different words on it.
Yeah, we're not mentioning, we're
Right.
deleting any reference to real estate, we'll
Right.
just have to explain it to the world with the
Yeah.
ordinance.
So is the base a 6-foot sign or a 4-foot
The
sign?
base is a 6-foot sign.
So
The
double
top.
faced would be 12.
Well, no,
Yes.
it's, you know, it's.
But
a
you only
sign.
read
Size
one-
is
The
stuff
sign,
that
it's
you
not
can-
Read
the-
one side at a time.
The
You're only,
visual impact.
you're only
Yourself,
ever
you
looking at
can
one
put it
sign,
into a
regardless
street.
of the fact that it's got another one on
Okay.
it.
Unless it's,
Are we settled on that?
That's not double-sided.
I know.
Are we all happy with that?
What you need,
Relatively?
Clear
Are
that
you
that's-
Yep.
Yeah, I think, I do, I
Okay.
do. Now, we have, the non-residential signs
This is
at
Howard's point about.
12 square feet,
Yeah.
non-residential.
So condos are non-residential.
No.
They're residential, but in a
Residential.
commercial zone.
Yeah, C2
usually.
or C4, whatever.
Okay.
Well-
Well, it depends on what,
I framed it
Residential
based on
content.
land use type, not the zoning.
Okay?
yeah.
Because we'll run into a million problems with the zoning. So if it's a residential use, you got 10 condos, you get 10 signs. If you don't wanna have them all facing State Street, then you need to say they have to be, that on multifamily, they have to be, on the street facing frontage of the
Well, the
unit.
homeowners association is gonna supersede this, is it not?
It can, yeah.
Well, the developer controls the HOA until the thing is sold, so it's a non-issue. The problem of having 25 signs is only while the project is initially being sold.
Okay, what I'm saying is, once it's occupied, you can have an entirely different set of rules that are specific to that homeowners association.
Could.
Correct.
For
And
individual
basically,
homes.
Eliminating all signs, in fact, which they
Possibly.
do in some,
You can.
yeah, all right.
So,
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Well, the problem I'm envisioning is I'm selling, small row houses along the 101 freeway, and I'm gonna put a sign on the back of each one.
Yeah.
Because it's great frontage for sign.
Yeah.
So what I'm suggesting is that with multiple family, you probably need some locational restriction as well, or else this Estancia project has 25 signs lined up on State Street. And if you don't care, so what?
Fair, we do care.
Do care big time.
It doesn't have 25 signs, it's got one huge sign.
Yeah.
And that's the point, that I think is germane right now. People are complaining that there's too many big for lease signs all over the place.
Mhm.
And I think in the 21st century, where you contact a broker to find out what's available for lease, these signs are ridiculous
Yeah.
on some level.
Well,
And we should take this opportunity to fix that.
This allows you, however, to do a rendering, an artist's rendering of what the project is gonna look like completed. And that's important when people are driving by. That
For
will
new
get them.
For new construction.
Yeah, for new construction, so,
It's-
that looks kinda cool, I might call. I think that's an important, allowance.
And
Well, there's a
we're,
lot of different things we're talking about.
But
here
that's
at
more
the
of a
same time.
construction sign than a
Well,
lease
Well,
sign.
that's kind of, if
this
we're talking
estancia
about
sign
condos,
is,
that's
how,
what we're
how
talking
long
about.
is that sign?
How about?
How long is the estancia sign on
Well,
the fence?
the way it worked in our committee is that, we said you can have, the 6 by 4, 24 square foot can be a sign. And then you can have other panels, as long as the other panels are pictures but not signs.
I think
So it's
that's,
graphics in
that's
there.
not a good example to use. That's not an
Well,
exempt sign.
that's the way it came.
Well, I'm saying that's a bad example. That did require approval. It wasn't an exempt sign.
Oh, I see.
We're just
Not-
talking about
that's true.
exempt
Just
signs.
exempt signs.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, we're saying
maybe I'm
12
losing it here, what kind of sign are we foreseeing here, or trying to?
Currently, the ordinance allows, 12 square feet or less on property in non-residential zones.
So we're thinking like condo construction, for instance?
Non-residential.
Non-residential.
It's all commercial property.
It does say non-residential zones, so I don't like
Is it the
that.
for lease sign the best example that we have?
Yeah, sure.
Let's just focus on that.
Which one?
For our brains.
Which one?
For lease signs
Mhm.
on State Street.
4E?
For
For
lease.
lease.
Oh, yeah,
signs.
okay, on
That's
State
what
Street.
we're talking about
All
on
right.
State Street. And then we can deal with all the other permutations of that later, but let's just put that in our
Okay,
brains,
okay.
so we have something in our minds.
Our current limitation is 12 square feet for those,
Correct,
3 by 4.
correct.
I think we should keep it at the same size as the residential.
That's what I think. I mean, it's just, they're often just way too big, and like you said, it's the 21st century, and
Yeah.
people aren't reliant on seeing a sign on the building to find out what's for lease in town.
If
In
it's
fact,
empty,
in
it's
some
for
cases,
lease.
they don't allow them, but no, I think,
You mean
not a good
by
idea.
the property owner
Yeah,
or something? Yeah,
yeah.
well, that'd be nice, but I sure see a lot of
Yeah,
them
not if
covering
you're
up
the property owner,
windows
no.
or.
Oh, yeah.
Way up high on a building or covering up.
So what's the
architectural,
suggestion
yeah.
here?
Make it the same as
4
the
square feet.
residential
6 square
sign,
feet.
4 square feet.
6 square feet
right.
as in the base size?
Right, we changed that to 6, yes.
All right, so that would be applied to the 3 by 2 and 4 lease sign on State Street.
Mm.
Okay.
And the quantity's the same, one sign
One.
per,
Yeah.
Do we need a quantity there?
Well,
Right now it
if
says-
we are, it's harder to, are you defining a base allowance for non-residential property? So again, back to Chick-fil-A and Carl's Jr., they get their 6 square feet. You can say, hey, if you wanna use that for lease, that's fine too. So you could, if you're consistent with residential, you don't create a special allowance for signage on non-commercial.
Yeah, and we're actually reducing junky
Now,
signage. so-
that is gonna be difficult where, people are using that base sign for legitimate commercial purposes, right?
Isn't that a different question? That their commercial sign is a different thing than what we're talking about here?
Yes, when we get to regulating commercial speech, it can be different. Right now, I'm just trying to get the pictures, and then we'll layer in the harder stuff about commercial versus non-commercial. Once we've got a graphic, we need to get a graphic pinned down.
Well, I'm still stuck on the for lease sign. Are you telling me that I have to be concerned about the sign that advertises the business in addition to this, or is this a different?
that's a good question.
We will have to create an additional allowance for those commercial
Okay,
signs.
and that's a separate thing. Okay, so we're still just talking about this lease thing. I'm hearing consensus.
Well,
that
for
the
lease,
same
I do
as
too.
The residential,
6.
consistent, same.
6
If you
feet
want-
higher
square feet.
You
window,
wanna
street
change it out
facing.
when you're
Right,
leasing it,
right.
that's your problem.
All right, great.
And one per lot, or what is it?
Yep.
Yeah,
One for
per
street
lot.
I
frontage.
think we will get pushback on this from commercial property owners.
Sure we will.
Oh, yeah.
I think we may have to revisit all these things when we get the rest of the complement of our committee, but for the purposes of who's here today making decisions, I think we can go ahead, right?
Yeah, you're kind of thinking like I am, which is the numbers are policy, you can argue about those, but let's get this
Yeah.
skeleton built.
Well, and once we have a draft to review and start trying to imagine how this works in reality, I think that'll be very helpful, instead of just a matrix of.
So you've got that one then, right, Ariel?
Correct,
Okay.
no trespass.
We have 10 minutes left, folks.
That's
Talk-
it?
Talk fast. All right, sir, next. Ariel?
No trespassing.
1 square foot.
Is that 6 by 6? 6 inches by 6 inches? That's pretty small.
1 square foot is
It's 1 by
2
12 by
inches
12.
by square inches. Oh, 12 by 12.
12 by 12,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
That's the
Oh,
size.
okay.
That's
Is there an
fine.
issue? Do we need to
Geometry.
discuss it?
Do you wanna allow them? You currently allow,
The
without a
corner
permit.
entrance and 50 feet intervals.
Where are these? At residential?
They can
Anywhere.
be.
Anywhere?
Anywhere.
All,
It's, you know, it's
all
this big.
zones.
Yeah.
It's not.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I don't wanna tell people they can't put up a no trespassing
Right.
sign.
No,
and they get
absolutely not.
violated and.
No, you gotta have
and they-
that.
So
lawsuit.
then we say you can have an additional 1 square foot sign placed at each corner, each entrance to the property in intervals of not less than 50 feet.
That works.
Sure.
Do we have a number of these you're allowed to?
Is that-
Well, I think
It's defined by the
Just
size of
by
the
the
property.
intervals,
Yeah,
limited by intervals? All right, can we leave that one alone then?
Let's do it.
so you'll get an additional there. All right. Residential identification, that is,
What, like your street sign?
The Wittoshes.
Is that the Limones, or is that the address? That's not the address, that's
Villa Wittog.
Yeah,
Villa Wittosh, yeah.
Is
Shea
it-
Kalan.
I think
Yeah, no, that's
Can't
the
that-
address.
Why
That's
do
the
you
address.
need that in addition to the 2 by 3 that you have as a baseline? You can choose to have.
this is 1 square foot. It's just a little thing over your front door
Well,
that says,
Use your 2 by 3 square footage to do that. Why do you need an additional sign?
I don't think you need an additional sign.
If it's carved into something, is it a
So you
sign?
say, make it part of the quota for residential?
Yeah, I don't know why we have this category to get another sign, cause truly, we can't regulate the
No,
content.
no, it was intended so to not have to deal with, naming your building or your address for your building. you're exempt, you just put up whatever you do to identify your house.
Home sweet home.
So that was the idea, it's not
But
that,
your numbers are exempt regardless.
On the curb.
Address,
no,
no,
this is actually on the building.
Oh,
The address numbers are
Yeah,
addressed, are exempt.
So whatever you're putting on the building, we
So
didn't
I've
want to
got a-
regulate that.
I've got a
And
free,
your family name.
I've
that
got a
would be part of it.
freestanding thing with the number on it.
Yeah.
That just sort of falls between the cracks here, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not on the
You
curb.
know, the courts are not gonna freak out if we say you can display your residential address, as long as it's no larger than 1 square foot.
Yeah, I'd say leave
Yeah,
it
that's
alone.
leave it
content,
alone.
but there's
Yeah.
a good
Leave it alone.
reason for that, we gotta be able to find that house.
Well, there's a safety reason there.
Well,
Yeah.
fire department requires that you have the numbers on the house.
All this is
Somewhere.
exempt, it makes sense to me.
All right,
Yeah.
so we just incorporate that into the 6 square feet?
Right, and do we extend,
Good suggestion.
well, let's limit that to residential, we're not gonna worry about commercial identification signs. Okay, B11, parking lot or private traffic directional. It currently allows a 2 square foot sign with black letters on a white or building colored background, limited to guidance of pedestrian and vehicular traffic within the premises. I'm willing to gamble that the safety interests in guiding traffic,
Exonerate this,
are compelling.
exempt.
I'm not held.
I'm
One-
okay with
One
it.
by 2.
What would be an example of this, like a one-way sign or something in a parking lot, or?
Or reserved parking spaces?
Or no unauthorized parking, or,
Yeah, there's a place on, Figueroa that has kind of a winding driveway up, and there's a private property sign, that's what we're talking about.
I don't know why it specifies black lettering. I mean, I don't see it, and I would rather it be a little more subtle if that's what
Right.
the owner would prefer.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Just direct-
Well,
If-
Otherwise
if
you
you-
get
if
some-
you, if you leave it open, then people can't get too creative. I
Yeah, they
suppose.
get,
Dig up.
Those people just get too creative with
Yeah,
their
they-
directional.
Jeff Shelton is gonna do something crazy with that if we don't just say black.
The idea is it
The
looks more
benefit
like
is
a
the other.
traffic sign than
I would leave it uniform, my suggestion.
How about if you wanna depart from that, you go to the sign committee?
Yeah, I don't wanna make people go to the sign committee for that. Well, I'm just,
You're gonna get day glow. You know, I mean, somebody's gonna come
you'll
up
get
with
yellow
something.
signs, you'll get.
okay, so that's the point of it, is to
Yeah.
get rid of the day glow.
Blue signs,
Well,
White, black, or building color,
yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's
that's, yeah.
pretty,
how's that?
yeah, I just still have a problem with the
Where's,
requirement that you use
are we on
black for the
parking lot
letters.
still?
Because it could be dark
Yes.
brown and
Are we on
building
this one?
color, and
Yes.
that would
The bottom.
look even
Parking
better,
lot.
so how do we
This
word it so that
well, if you don't want to
it
be
precludes?
that color, you do come to the sign committee and get something approved, that's different.
You
This
have
is
to
just
get
a, you don't have to
a
come.
waiver.
Yeah, I,
Let's set a
That's no
standard
problem
and
with that.
then you can vary from it.
yes.
It's not gonna be a huge issue.
Yeah, and color's not content, so you can have the sign committee regulate that based on whatever you want. Okay, B12, informational commercial, that is a weird one.
Example,
Open?
I don't
Vacancy?
know, it's not defined, Jaime, what does that mean?
It's more information on the building, like,
Open?
open, business hours, everything that you wanna put on the front of the business that tells you, what's going on with that business. We accept Visa, we,
ATM inside.
They're
What about
open.
brand-related signs, which you see,
Like
Beer.
Budweiser or something.
no, that's separate, that's different.
that's not related
No.
to this?
No,
That's not
So
the name
what
of
would
the
be an
business.
example of this? I mean,
No, not the name of the business, but products that they're marketing.
well, it talks about, they indicate hours,
Advertising.
days of operation, whether you're open or closed, emergency address and no telephone numbers. And it does sort of limit the lettering height, so it really does become more of a subset of information.
Do we need to touch this?
I think it's functional, so it works right now, people get to put this stuff,
Well, it means an additional sign, 5 square feet total, that you can't regulate the content of. You can regulate the location of it, which the ordinance attempts to do. You can, allow neon or LED as this does in certain circumstances. So it's,
Can you still call it an informational commercial sign, or is that not allowed?
maybe under the context of commercial speech, we could control it a little bit.
So if it says it's related to the information about the business, I think it would also
Well,
contain
that's
it.
still, that's direct content regulation.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So,
it's
if this cannot stand as it is that what you're saying, Ariel?
No, it needs to, if you look at, like Jaime said, credit information, open, hours and operation, so.
So now we're in content is what you're saying?
Seems like you can lower that down.
The total
Yeah,
area.
so, you know, if you're getting all this sign already, you don't need the 5 square feet. I mean, most people accomplish it in a very small area at the door.
Also, if their letters are under 2 inches,
Yeah, it's very small.
So if we change this, is it retroactive that people are gonna have to remake all their signs?
No, they'll be non-conforming legal. When they change them, they'll have to.
So Jaime, how would you put this thing?
I'd lower it to half or 2 square feet and say you get some information at the, can you locate at the front door?
Entrance.
Entrance signage.
I don't really know here.
where do you say that? What is it, why does this have to be?
In here, you change it to 2 square feet.
Oh, yeah,
You call
okay.
it accessory front end signage.
Yeah, so this is a sign that has a low potential for abuse. It could be used for any other message, but low potential. You know, since we're gonna lose Councilmember Hart, can we reconvene in 2 weeks? Anybody have
Sure.
time to look at their calendar?
Well, we certainly need to,
Because
unfortunately.
I wanna get this thing done, and I've been bad in terms of supporting you, because these long delays do make it harder.
We're talking the
So
1st of June?
1st of June, yeah.
We need time for that algorithm.
Yeah.
Constructed.
I have it right here.
First, I gotta know what an algorithm is.
I think it's too complicated. personally.
It's a discrete set of steps to get from
I think we
point A
call
to
it
point
2
B.
weeks, and everybody who can make it makes it, and everybody who can't, can't.
5 o'clock on the 1st of June?
Yeah, if that's good for you, it's good for me.
Is there anybody who cannot make that right
Okay
now?
with that?
I can't, but I think there's gonna be increasingly harder to.
It's a Thursday.
Well, let's just go with it and see if we can go. We're missing like 5 people here. Hopefully we grab some of them. Can you get that word out, Ariel?
Yeah, and what I'll do, in addition, I'll send out, an email synopsis of what we did tonight, so that it's available for the folks that weren't here and refreshes everybody who was here.
All right, can
That's
we
great.
have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second, done. We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.